good evening, good night. I would like to greet everyone, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Dear colleagues, I would like to once again congratulate all of you on the holiday of the great victory, and to thank our friends and international partners who during these days were with us in Moscow at the anniversary celebrations to pay tribute to the generation of victors. We honor all those who contributed to the common victory over Nazism. This includes our allies in the anti-Hitler coalition on the soldiers of China, members of the anti-fascist resistance in Europe, fighters of the national liberation movements in Africa and the Asia-Pacific region, and volunteers from Latin American countries. We are united with our friends and like-minded people by a shared memory and respect for history, for the feats of true heroes who fought for freedom, and of course by our responsibility for the future, for building a more just and secure world. It was issues in Netase, the stable, sustainable development of global community, Eurasia and other world regions, depends on central to bilateral and multilateral meetings in Moscow. These meetings, of course, took place in a special, solemn and festive atmosphere, but at the same time, they were exceptionally rich and substantive, filled with topics from the political, economic, and humanitarian agendas. To sum up, and this is what I would like to do now, I can say that over the course of 4 days, from May 7th to May 10th, we held events for the official visits of the leaders of 3 foreign states: the People's Republic of China, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, and the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. In addition, 20 bilateral meetings were held with the heads of states from the CIS, Asia, Africa, the Middle East, Europe, and Latin America. In total, 27 heads of state from the CIS, Asia, Africa, the Middle East, Europe, and Latin America, as well as about 10 leaders of international organizations took part in the celebrations. Another 6 countries were represented at a high level. We see such broad participation by delegations from foreign countries and international organizations as an inspiring testament to the genuine unity around the enduring ideas and values of our shared great victory. We are grateful to the leaders of 13 countries who sent units of their national armed forces to take part in the parade on Red Square. Their march shoulder to shoulder with our parade formations filled the shared celebration with a special energy, the spirit of combat, brotherhood forged during the years of the Second World War. I was glad to thank the commanders of the Korean People's Army and convey my regards to the soldiers and officers of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, who, together with our fighters, carried out their tasks professionally during the liberation of the border areas of the Kursk region from the formations of the Kyiv regime. Let me emphasize, they demonstrated courage, heroism, and acted with utmost professionalism, with excellent training and preparation. And of course, for all the heads of state, it was a special honor to welcome in the stands the main heroes of the victory anniversary, veterans of the Second World, the war from Russia, Israel, Armenia, and Mongolia. I would like to note that despite my threats, blackmail, and various obstacles, including the closure of airspace, leaders of several European countries still came to Moscow: Serbia, Slovakia, Bosnia, and Herzegovina. Let me repeat, we understand the immense pressure they faced, and that is why we sincerely appreciate their political courage, their firm moral stance, and their decision to join us in this celebration to pay tribute to the memory of the heroes of the great patriotic war of the Second World War, who fought both for their own homeland and for the liberation of the entire world. All of humanity from the Brown Plague, without any exaggeration. It is important to us that millions of Europeans, as well as the leaders of countries that pursue an independent policy, remember this. This gives us optimism and hope that sooner or later, relying in part on the lessons of history and the opinions of their peoples, we will begin to move toward restoring constructive relations with the countries of Europe, including those who today still refuse to abandon anti-Russian rhetoric and openly aggressive actions toward us, who continue, something we are witnessing right now, to speak to us, essentially, in a rude manner and through ultimatums. A true example of modern equal relations in the 21st century is our comprehensive partnership and strategic cooperation with the People's Republic of China. President of the PRC Xi Jinping was the main guest at the ceremonial events dedicated to the 80th anniversary of the Great Victory. We held exceptionally productive talks. 2 joint statements were adopted at the level of heads of state. A whole series of intergovernmental and interdepartmental agreements were signed, covering areas such as energy, trade, finance, science, culture, and much more. As mentioned, it has been agreed that in September I will pay an official return visit to China for celebrations marking the 80th anniversary of victory over militarist Japan. It is deeply symbolic and fitting that the main and in fact the most significant commemorative events marking the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II in Europe and Asia will take place. Precisely in Moscow and Beijing, the capitals of the countries whose peoples endured the harshest trials and paid the highest price for the sake of our common victory. Dear colleagues, I believe it is obvious to everyone that during the negotiations and meetings held in Moscow, the issue of resolving the conflict in Ukraine was also discussed. We are grateful to all our guests, our friends, for the attention they pay to this conflict and for the efforts they are making to bring it to an end. In this regard, I consider it necessary to address this topic separately. In this context, I would like to say that, as is well known, Russia has repeatedly put forward initiatives for a ceasefire in the past. However, these initiatives have been sabotaged time and again by the Ukrainian side. For example, the Kyiv regime demonstratively violated the 30-day, let me emphasize 30-day, moratorium on strikes against energy facilities about 130 times from March 18th to April 17th. This moratorium was declared in accordance with an agreement between our president and the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump. The Easter truce, initiated by Russia, was also not observed. The ceasefire regime was violated by Ukrainian forces almost 5,000 times. Nevertheless, for the celebration of Victory Day, which we also consider a sacred holiday, just imagine, we lost 27 million people. We declared a truce for this holy day for the 3rd time. So, for this sacred holiday, we announced a ceasefire for the 3rd time. At the same time, we conveyed to our colleagues in the West, those who, in my opinion, genuinely seem to be seeking ways to resolve the situation, our position on the ceasefire for Victory Day, stating that in the future we do not rule out the possibility of extending the duration of this truce. But, of course, this would be after analyzing what happens over these few days based on the results of how the Kyiv regime responds to our proposal. And what do we see? What are the results? The Kyiv authorities, as you yourselves can clearly see, did not respond at all to our proposal for a ceasefire. Moreover, after we announced our proposal, which, as you remember, happened on May 5th of this year, the Kyiv authorities launched large-scale attacks as early as the night of May 6th to 7th. The strike involved 524 unmanned aerial vehicles and a number of Western-made missiles. At the same time, 45 unmanned surface vessels were also used in the Black Sea. And during these 3 days of the ceasefire that we announced, the 8th, 9th, and 10th, what happened was exactly what you saw and observed in the media. In fact, it was already clear from your own reports. During this time, there were 5 deliberate attempts to attack the state border of the Russian Federation in the area of the Kursk region and at the junction with the Belgorod region. And this happened precisely on the days of the ceasefire we announced. In addition, in other directions, there were 36 more attacks carried out. All these attacks, including the attempts to penetrate the territory of the Russian Federation in the area of the Kursk and Belgorod regions, were repelled. Moreover, we believe, and our military experts believe, that they had no military significance whatsoever and were carried out solely for political reasons. The enemy suffered very heavy losses. As I have already said, the Kyiv authorities not only rejected our proposal for a ceasefire, but also, as we all saw, tried to intimidate the leaders of the states gathered for the celebrations in Moscow. You know, dear colleagues, as I was meeting with colleagues here in Moscow, I had the following thought. Let me share it with you. Who are they trying to intimidate among those who came to Moscow to celebrate the victory over Nazi Germany? Who were they trying to intimidate? After all, those who came to us are leaders not because of their official position or title. They are leaders by character, by their convictions, and by their willingness to stand up for those convictions. And who was trying to intimidate them? Those who stand at attention and salute and applaud former SS soldiers, and who elevate to the status of national heroes those who collaborated with Hitler during World War II. But it seems to me that this is an attempt with obviously ineffective means, right? And those who are trying to do this do not live up to the ambitions they themselves are aiming for. Let me repeat once again. We have repeatedly proposed steps towards a ceasefire and have never refused dialogue with the Ukrainian side. Let me remind you again, it was not us who broke off negotiations in 2022. It was the Ukrainian side that did this. In this regard, despite everything, we propose that the Kyiv authorities resume the negotiations that they broke off at the end of 2022. Resume direct talks, and I emphasize, Jacob, without any preconditions. We propose to start without delay already next Thursday, May 15th, in Istanbul, where they were previously held and where they were interrupted. Our Turkish colleagues have offered their services to organize negotiations, and President Erdogan has worked to make them happen. Let me remind you that as a result of these negotiations, a joint draft document was prepared, and it was initialed by the head of the Kyiv negotiation team, Tombaneshich, but at the insistence of the West, it was simply thrown into the trash, thrown into. Tomorrow, we have a scheduled conversation with the President of Turkey, Mr. Erdogan. I want to ask him to provide the opportunity to hold such negotiations in Turkey. I hope that he will confirm his willingness to help in the search for peace in Ukraine. We are committed to serious negotiations with Ukraine. The point of these negotiations is to eliminate the root causes of the conflict and to achieve the establishment of a long-term, lasting peace for the historical future. We do not rule out that during these negotiations it may be possible to agree on some new ceasefires, on a new cessation of hostilities, specifically a real truce that would be observed not only by Russia but also by the Ukrainian side. This would be the first step, I repeat, toward a long-term sustainable peace and not a prelude to the continuation of armed conflict after the rearmament and reinforcement of the Ukrainian armed forces and the frantic digging of trenches and new strong points. Who needs a world? Our proposal, as they say, is on the table. The decision now lies with the Ukrainian authorities and their handlers, who it seems are guided by their own personal political ambitions rather than the interest of their peoples, and want to continue the war with Russia using Ukrainian nationalists as their instrument. I repeat, Russia is ready for negotiations without any preconditions. There are active hostilities as we seek to resume negotiations not interrupted. Well, what's so bad about that? Those who truly want peace cannot help but support this. At the same time, I would like once again to express my gratitude for the mediation efforts and initiatives aimed at a peaceful resolution of the Ukrainian crisis, which are being undertaken by our foreign partners. These include China, Brazil, countries in Africa, the Middle East, and more recently, the new administration of the United States of America. In conclusion, I would like to thank everyone who celebrated the 80th anniversary of the victory over Nazism with us. I am confident that the spirit of solidarity and unity that brought us together in Moscow these days will continue to help us build fruitful cooperation and partnership for the sake of progress, security, and peace. Taking this opportunity, I would also like to highlight the tremendous role played by journalists, representatives of global news agencies, television channels, and the press, who covered the anniversary events, the hours-long program of the current negotiations and working meetings, and did so much to ensure that people in different countries around the world could experience the unique atmosphere of these festive days in Moscow. And of course, I thank you for this meeting, since it is taking place quite late, and naturally everyone is already, of course, tired. Thank you very much for your attention. Since it is already 1:30 in the morning, or even later Moscow time, I will let you go. God bless. Thank you very much for your attention. Goodbye.